Welcome everybody. Happy Saturday. My name is Faith Cruz. I am the career consultant here at Global Voice Acting Academy. I'm super delighted to have Pamela Vanderway here with us today. We are having a question and answer webinar on accents for everyone. And Pamela has an impressive resume, of which you don't even get to see in her bio, but we'll make sure we correct that. But she is the president of Dialect Coaches Worldwide. She is the founder of dialectcoaches.com. But more importantly than that, I think what speaks to her credibility is the fact that she is the person who actually vets all the accent and dialect coaches that are out there, so that when people need a specific coach on a specific accent or a specific way of communicating and training, one of the things that she told me, like, if I didn't want to learn the IPA, I don't have to, which is like, what? You know, there are people who actually don't teach you that way. What? And to me, it's like mind blowing. So to me, that's my golden nugget. But anyway, she's the person who understands what people do well and what they don't. She actually has built, you know, this is what's so amazing. We're doing this webinar for free, and there are people, Hollywood actors, who have paid her $20,000 a month to spend time with her to learn what she has to offer. So this is the kind of person that we have available to you today as a resource. So please take advantage of it and listen to what she has to say. She is definitely the authority on this subject and has a passion and a heart to serve you. I won't take it too much away from you. I know you want to share more about your history. So please, Pamela, let us know what got you started and why are you so passionate about accents?
Well, I've loved accents since the beginning of my life. I love hearing all kinds of sounds and trying to make those sounds and the sociological aspects that go into acting and accent. But what got me into Dialect Coaches Worldwide was me seeing the need for working actors to have access to real accent training. There's a lot of accent training that's offered, free stuff you pay a lot of money for, that is not actually efficient in teaching accent. It sort of hints around at accent, teaches you about accent, but it doesn't necessarily turn you into what I would call an accent actor, somebody who is able to learn new accents and to perform them. There's two kinds of learning with accents. You can learn about an accent, all the characteristics of an accent, and then you can learn to actually do it. This is a skill. So it's a two-part process. So at Dialect Coaches Worldwide, what I do is I talk to production every day. Productions call me trying to find coaches that have specific skills, and actors also call me because they're looking for key dialect coaches. And a key dialect coach is your personal dialect coach, the one that knows you as well as your acting coach would know you, so that when you get an audition and you think, I haven't done this particular accent, that coach can say, well, okay, what we do know is that you've done this other accent and this other accent, which means that you already know some things, some ingredients that are going to go into this new accent. So let's get you there as fast as possible. And so I help actors select that key coach, finding somebody who not only can teach them the accent they want right now, but also works in a way that seems to be symbiotic with that actor's own way of learning and their own philosophy about acting.
Yeah, I just think that's phenomenal. I seriously, to me, as someone who loves teaching, as someone who loves being a student, because I love learning, I think that is the perfect match, is to be able to find somebody who knows how to work with you in your style of learning, because we all learn differently. So that's what a phenomenal resource that is, that you have available at your fingertips. That's awesome. Okay, so I know that you have, you've been doing this for 20 plus years. So you have a lot of questions that have been asked. You have plenty of experience.
Since I was one. I started when I was one.
There you go. Before you could even speak, you knew about accents. So you have a lot of questions that get asked of you and that you have an understanding. Obviously, this is your life's work. Why don't you start us off with what those common questions are and really set the foundation of what we can expect when we think about accents?
Sure. You know, the most common question that I get is, this is going to sound funny, but what is an accent? People have an idea kind of what one is, but not really. If we boil it down to the very basics, an accent is a characteristic way of speaking. That's about as simply as we can put it. It's also a component of identity. So the accent that we choose to speak with is part of how we identify ourselves. I could choose to speak in a different accent if I wanted to and decide this is how I'm going to talk, and that's just how I'm going to talk. But we get to select that. You know, at first, our adults teach us how to have a specific accent. And then as teenagers, we tend to adopt a little bit of shift. And we continue to change our accents throughout our lives. You can look back at someone as formal as Prince Charles of England and look at some of the early videos of him on YouTube versus the more recent ones, and you will see that his accent has changed. And that's a person for whom speech is a very specific thing that he's been taught.
Right, because for him, it's about the class and level of society.
Yeah, he has responsibility.
Exactly. Yes.
Accent is also a movement. We can't have an accent, we can't speak without moving. So there's a physical component. Speaking is a psychophysical process. And here's something really cool. Cognitive scientists haven't quite figured out how we do it yet. So you'd think they would have it nailed down. They know some things about how it works, but we don't know everything. We don't know quite how a thought gets from here out here. It'll be a fantastic day when we can describe that. So what's an accent? It's a characteristic way of speaking. It's a component of identity. It's movement. And most importantly for actors, it's a layer of storytelling. It's a layer that's there whether you pay any attention to it or not. If you've got a line, if you speak a single word or even a connecting sound, that is a layer of storytelling.
Yeah.
So those are the things to really know about an accent. Oh, P.S. And everyone has one.
There is no such thing as non-accented speaking.
Correct.
I love you. You are like totally shattering every paradigm I've thought about when it comes to accents. So thank you. No, that's great. I mean, this is phenomenal to learn. I don't know if I'm the only one who's like gets so excited to hear this stuff, but I'm super, like, my mind is being blown. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Because when we think about accents, you're right. We think about, well, when those kind of people speak that way, or when I go to the South and people speak, they have an accent, but we tend to think others have an accent. We never see the accent that we have, right?
Right. Yeah, we don't, because we just assume that everyone else is having the same kind of process we're having in our minds, and we all have a different set of phonemes, individual sounds that were taught to us by the adults around us that gave us our speech in the first place. And so some of us are very fortunate in that in our early lives we were exposed to speakers who had different sets of phonemes, different collections. You know, I kind of like to think of it as, I'll just give you a little visual here, that, you know, it's like colors. We're given a certain set of colors that go with our accent. And, you know, if we grew up in a very homogenous area, then we heard just this and we learned just this. And everything that doesn't, quote, go with that sounds like an accent. Some of us were privileged enough to be exposed to so many phonemes that nothing really sounds quite so foreign, and it all sounds accessible. There's that.
That's awesome. No, that's a great way of looking at it. And it's our worldview of accents that helps us then tap into what it really is and how it can help us. Great.
True that.
Okay.
I have another thing I want to say here is people always ask me, how can I successfully learn an accent? And that's something that I'm going to be covering definitely in the upcoming workshop. That's the whole goal, but it boils down to these three things. 1, motivation to do it. 2, a strategy that works for you. And 3, follow through. Those 3 things you have to have in order to learn an accent for plausible performance. So motivation, strategy, and follow through. The last one I get all the time is, will learning an accent actually help my career, my voiceover career, my on-screen career, any of it? And here's what I can say about that. Here's what investing time and energy into mastering an accent to the level of performance can do. It heightens your overall awareness as an actor. It helps you hone your script analysis ability so that all that stuff you're doing anyway, when those sides come in, gets better and better and better. Makes you a more detailed listener, a clearer listener, a better listener. Increases your physical skills and articulatory flexibility, even within your own accent. You know how sometimes you think, they want a little pause here, but when you go to make that pause, it doesn't quite sound natural. Learning an accent and going through that experience will help you to become better with those kind of details, even inside your own accent, your own what's called an idiolect. Learning an accent to a level of mastery, to the level of performance, gives you more creative control over your acting choices. And it makes you eligible for more roles. So that's what I can say about it being, helpful to your voiceover career. If you find any of those things to be helpful to your voiceover career, then yes, it's helpful to your voiceover career.
Book more work. Let me see. It sounds like a winner to me. Okay. All right. Well, great. Well, we do have some questions. Let's take a look at some of those. And of course, let me know.
Let me take a look at here.
Sure.
Okay. Let's take a look at this one here.
Okay.
Do you see it? Is it coming through for you?
What are the most in-demand accents? That one? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Robert is asking, what are the most in-demand accents for video games and commercials?
Okay. So this changes all the time, but quite often various British accents come into play. Outside of, obviously, general American is going to appear in every one of those projects. But depending on what's the genre of that video game. But British happens a lot. German happens a lot. And look at Middle Eastern accents, because those are starting to happen quite a bit. So those are happening a lot. That's what I would say for that. And Robert, let us know if that didn't answer it completely, okay?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, with what I've seen in specs for video games as well, it's the accents that they have, but they want it to sound like a normal person too. So now when you think about accents and normal people just not sounding so fake-ish, if you will, how do you combine the two? Is that something that I'm curious?
Yeah, I'm going to go into depth in this in that class, but I have to touch on this. I don't want anyone to leave here without understanding. If you hear a performance, a performance in an accent other than the actor's own, okay?
Right.
And it doesn't sound like a real person, it's because that accent is probably not integrated into that actor's thought process.
Okay.
So just like, if you were acting inside your own accent and you are reading the lines clearly, but it doesn't sound like a real person, it's because you haven't made those thoughts your own yet, right?
Right. Yes, absolutely.
So it's the same thing. So there's that level that it's just, no one ever talks about it with accent training. They're basically saying, here are all the little things that show up in this accent. Make sure you do this and you do that when you do this accent, but they don't tell you how to get that into that integration process. That's just sort of left up to magic. And it's part of it is not explainable, but there are methods that help you get to that integration point.
Absolutely. I almost kind of feel like it's similar to character work, right? Because a lot of people think that character work is just mimicking a sound. It's not fully developing the character and becoming a character, an embodiment of the entire character. The thoughts, how do they walk? How do they feel when they're sad? How do they express that? And when we're talking about accents, I kind of feel like it's the same way. Well, I don't do any kind of accents well, so I'm not even going to pretend. But let's say I wanted to act into a certain accent, but if all I'm doing is just doing the voice instead of me, then it's not really becoming that person, right? So
maybe you've heard the term commenting on. You're commenting on the action, so you were commenting on the action,
right?
Like if I do when I do an impression of my dad, I am not being my dad right now. I'm commenting on the action. You can see that I'm still present. Like Pamela is still there talking about how hilarious her father is.
Right.
If those two things are happening, the audience is going to see that. They're going to hear it. If you're in voiceover, they're going to hear it.
Right.
All that information, not much information is lost in audio only format.
Right.
You know, human beings can hear
Right.
the picture, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. That's such a, oh, I love it. The dots are connecting in my mind. I hope they're connecting for you as well. All right. So we have more questions here.
So I'm getting, yeah, a lot of these are very similar, and we've got Kara and has asked, and
yep. Okay. Let me ask that question. Okay. So Kara has asked, what are the most commonly used requested accents that we should make it a priority to learn first? So you've already addressed that. RP and Mid-Atlantic seem most common. That's true. I've seen the Mid-Atlantic come up a lot this past year. What others are popular? And you know what? Let's talk about the Mid-Atlantic one, because so many people don't really understand what the hell is the Mid-Atlantic accent anyway. And pardon my French. I didn't mean to sound so explicit. I didn't mean to offend anybody.
No, but I have to say there's a reason that happened. And it is because, you know, really, come on now, what the hey is that? So, you know, there is a classic tome. I'm gonna grab my original copy. Here it goes.
Sure.
So this is my original copy from half my life ago of this book called Speak with Distinction, by Edith Skinner, sort of, but truly this book was published after her death. This is a compilation of her notes as a college teacher, college professor, by Timothy Monick and Lylene Mansell. Tim Monick is one of the most highly rated dialect coaches in the nation, and before that, Edith Skinner was. This book is dedicated to that accent, to the Mid-Atlantic accent. Sometimes you hear transatlantic accent. Sometimes you hear classical speech for the stage. Sometimes you hear standard American. All of those terms can be referring to, quote, this accent. It's really important to note that when we talk about an accent, we are never talking about a single thing. So when we say, we're going to use Kara's terminology here and say Mid-Atlantic. So when we're saying Mid-Atlantic accent, we can't even be entirely conclusive about what's being asked for, because the person requesting it doesn't have a strong model for it either. So there are some components like.
So is it more that they're saying they don't want certain things, and so when they request that, do you think they're mostly saying what they don't want?
This comes down to script analysis.
Okay.
You have to look at all the clues you have, everything. And I know we don't get a lot of clues with these breakdowns.
Sometimes, yeah. Yeah.
But you look at, okay, so what kind of company is asking me for this? What kind of character is speaking this? What's the function of my character in this piece? Are they the hero? Are they the villain? What are they? Why could my character possibly be speaking with this accent? Once you know that, and you learn the basics, like the classic, like what's in this kind of book, you can decide which features to exhibit and which features to inhibit.
Okay.
And that's what goes back to all that control, having control as an actor. Because if you just do this, you won't necessarily get the job, even if you were totally right for it. You have to really figure it out. And if you have the chance to ask somebody, you know, when you have that rare chance to say, tell me more.
Right.
When they say, give me a standard American accent. Fantastic. Tell me more about that. Tell me more about the character. Let them start to describe it. And if you've invested the time to become an accent actor, to approach accent the way an Olympic gymnast approaches their work. Because here's the deal. Accents, it's deceptively, it's easy to think that accents are just talking. But they're not. To be able to convincingly portray another living human being in an accent that is believable and consistent, that takes skill.
It sure does.
Yeah, and we get tricked by it, because we look over at actor A over there, and they're like, oh, it's easy. I just do it all the time. I just do a little bit of this. I just hint at the accent over here. What they're not aware of is that they were inadvertently training themselves their whole lives. Perhaps they're one of those lucky people who grew up in an area where all these sounds were happening. So their brain was storing those sounds for them. And perhaps they were like me, a little monkey kid who ran around and turned everything into accents they'd heard of and not heard of. And they've been playing with it their whole lives, every day, practicing without being conscious of it. So they do feel like, oh, I'm just doing this. Well, when an Olympic gymnast gets excited, they could just do a cartwheel, but I can't because I haven't invested the time in learning how to do it. So
and
if you want to do this, you got to get into it.
Absolutely. And there's something to be said about the authenticity of it, and the fact that if it were to be played in that person's region of where that accent comes from or originates from, people will know. Like, you know, when I hear somebody say to me, because I speak fluent Spanish, and they tell me they speak Spanish fluently, and then I listen to them, it's like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
Right? You might think you do, but no, you really don't. So and that's, you know, that's the truth, right? We all think we can you know, like, well, if I kind of do this and if I kind of do that, then that's going to come out real and genuine. But no, it really doesn't. And you're right. Anything that is an art, because even voiceovers, let's just not even talk about accents, even just voiceovers itself, it's an art, and it takes time to create, and it takes time to get to your performance level and grow and become better and better and better. It doesn't happen overnight, right? So the same thing with this. So we wouldn't treat accents any differently than that, because it does take time, like you said, commitment, the follow through, the practice. Oh my gosh, you know. So absolutely. Thank you so much. That's really good.
You're welcome. So let's do this one here.
Yeah. So this one, it's
kind of similar.
It's very similar. It's, what is the best tip for tackling the modern mid-Atlantic or quote unquote transatlantic accent? Many overseas clients ask for it and want something neutral, but for those of us in the US, it hardly sounds neutral to us. So talk about that a little bit.
Let's talk about that neutrality.
Yeah.
So whatever is different than you is not going to sound neutral. So you are the nexus, right? You're the center of this whole thing. It's when you consider accent, you get to start with yourself. Sometimes accents are, well, a lot of times you pick up a book and accents are, I was looking over books. You pick up a book and accents are taught from the point of view of general American. So you'll open up a book and it'll say, if you say ask, they say ask. Except what if you say ask? If you say ask, does it become ask? I don't know. Or the vowel here is like when you say ask. Well, okay, great. I'm going to turn it into ask. A lot of resources are made only for people who already have, quote, a general American accent, which you know, is starting to become a so-called general American accent, because there really isn't such a thing
anymore. Yeah.
No. And you know what? There actually never has been.
But we want to believe that there has been, though, right? We want to believe that there has been. And we do have to respect the client, right? If they're saying,
oh, yeah.
Of course, whatever you say, client, but we have to understand and know the truth. And the truth is, which is what I deduced from our earlier conversation, which I thought was phenomenal. And I'll touch on this a little bit, you know, for those of us who are American and don't resemble the Anglo-Saxon look of an American and don't have that American sound, if you will, that, or the, what most people would say, you know, some people have said, oh, the California, that's the sound that most people want, that's neutral. Or some people say the Midwestern sound, that's the neutral sound, depending on where you're coming from. So talk about that, because we all have in our mind of, well, I'm not neutral, or, you know, I don't know how many people are on this call who are not quote unquote American sounding, because they have what I have, you know, I have an ethnicity, a different language, and the fact that I was raised in Chicago. So talk to me about that a little bit.
About
well, just the whole neutral accent and why that's not necessarily true.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. You're going to hear from people, you know, from agents, from managers, sometimes from instructors, that you need to lose an accent.
Mm-hmm.
As an actor, I urge you to thank that person for their concern, because they're trying to help you. They're not trying to be mean. I'm just going to have to make the assumption no one's trying to be mean.
Right.
But they're coming from a normative point of view. And all I can say is that that I've had to actually go in to do ADR for a television show to teach a famous French actor to sound more French, because they had been told to, quote, neutralize their accent. And if you approach learning any accent as if it's neutralization, as if it's get rid of your accent, you can succeed at that. You can subvert that own piece of your identity so that you can't have access to it readily. And why would you want to do that as an actor? Why would you want to get rid of something you know how to do?
Right.
Why would you want to change how you talk every day? I do not talk in a standard American accent, in a general American accent. I don't talk I'm not talking right now in the accent I was trained to do, because I don't want to and I don't need to. You pay me to do it, I'll do it in 10 seconds.
Right.
But I'm going to be me otherwise, because that's how I feel the most authentic without preparation and character work. So
it's about what you said earlier, which is about adding on an accent versus taking away and then becoming something that you're not.
Yeah, accent reduction and accent neutralization, they are both misnomers. It's accent acquisition. It's always learning more, adding on, adding on, adding on. So if you've been through an experience where someone has said, we've got to neutralize that accent, and if you find that it's causing difficulties in your other accent areas, I encourage you to go back and just rethink that whole situation and say, well, what if I just go back and say, my accent's fantastic, and I'm doing Gen Am for fun, General American for fun, and take some time and muse on that and get a strategy and follow through and work on it and see what shifts for you, because I can pretty much guarantee something major is going to shift there.
Well, thank you. I did want to touch on that because I know I've personally, that has happened to me personally, but I've also personally spoken to many people in this industry that have been told that. And I never really understood it until really honestly till today, based on our conversation and just listening to you here, just the importance of learning that it's about acquiring the new accent, not getting rid of it. I think that's a really important message for anybody who needed to hear that. I hope you heard it loud and clear. Okay, well, we are at the bottom of the hour so fast. It definitely went by fast. Of course, we're talking with Pamela. She is the authority of accents. Thank you so much for taking the time to really set the foundation of what an accent is, what it isn't, what we should be striving for, the importance and the dedication and the commitment to acquire that. That it's possible, that you have such a wealth of knowledge that you can refer us to, like when you said, yeah, I can refer you to someone who doesn't use the IPA system. It's like, what? I mean, the fact that even exists is pretty phenomenal to me. So I did put the link in the chat for everyone. If you want to take the Accent Essential class, which I can't imagine why you wouldn't, if you care about accents and you want to book more work, as we learned, just to be more versatile and have more to pull from our toolbox, that would be a great starting point. Pamela has a passion. I mean, I was able to speak with her, and she truly has a passion, just like we do here at GVA, to give you the tools and resources that you need to take your voiceover career to the next level and help you do that in a cost-effective way. Obviously, none of us here have $20,000 to spend with Pamela for the next 30 days learning an accent, but she is so desirous of us learning this information. She's put it together in a class. She's going to be working with us to come up with more curriculum that's going to be helpful for us, because really the truth of the matter is, and Pamela, would you quickly speak to that? Like, what is missing out there? Why is this such an underserved area in curriculum and in voiceover training? Can you speak to that a little bit?
I think it's multi-level there. One of the things is that the world got smaller because of the internet and YouTube. So in the past, when you could fake something because no one had okay, let me just say, Madagascar accent. If I just pulled out a Madagascar accent right now and I stayed consistent, you'd probably say, okay, I guess that's a Madagascar accent. I haven't really heard it. But if you've been on YouTube and you happen to follow a Madagascar YouTuber, you'd be like, that's not a Madagascar accent. So we can't fool people the way we used to.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so those distilled stage dialects that you see showing up in old-fashioned books from the 80s and before, those don't work anymore. People are too savvy. What was the rest of your question?
Well,
Um,
just the fact that there's not a curriculum out there that's really doing justice to this whole understanding of accents.
yeah, and so there's that the whole industry moves kind of slowly. There's also not a single hub of information anywhere. I'm kind of trying to change that. I'm trying to make sure that actors have resources. It's one of the reasons that I have that Pinterest page, pinterest.com/dialect coaches. We have 3,500 plus links now for accent and dialect and voice they don't go to our sites, they go all over the internet. But they're all personally vetted. I've I've looked at every single one of them.
Thank you.
Um,
What a great resource. Thank you. I'll make
so
sure I put that link
yeah,
in there.
so it's just hard for actors to find. Well, just you know, acting training is hard to figure out. How do
Right.
you find a good acting teacher? This is the same kind of thing. How do you even start? So I want to help this organization create a way for the students here to craft their own path. You know, so that you don't end up like when we talked about this earlier. I said, have you ever been in your car using your GPA and just following what it says, boom, 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 and not gotten where you were supposed to go because you didn't know the general landscape? You didn't say to yourself, shouldn't I be heading west toward the ocean right now? And I'm kind of going east. So I want to help in this webinar in particular. I'm going to help you get that landscape so you can chart your own course to decide, okay, I want to take this much money and do this with it intelligently to get
Nice.
the results that I want. I want you to not get lost by GPA, not get lost by a lockstep, do this, and this program.
Right. And waste money in the process. And obviously you don't do one-on-one coaching as much as you used to, and none of us probably could afford the $20,000 fee, but thank you so much for your heart to serve us and to answer some of these fundamental questions that help us now understand moving forward what is an accent, what it isn't, and how we can acquire it and learn better. So I look forward to seeing you in that class, and the link is there. I will put her Pinterest resource guide, basically what it would be with that kind of vast information. Thank you so much to everyone who took the time out of your Saturday to be here with us. It's truly a joy and an honor for me to serve everyone here at Global Voice Acting Academy through these Q&As. We look forward to having more. We thank you so much again, Pamela, for your generosity and your time as well. And I know your class is going to be fantastic. So don't hesitate to register. Our classes do tend to fill up. We keep them small on purpose because we want people to work and get the information that they need. So go ahead and register there. And if you have any questions, don't ever hesitate to reach out to us via email or Facebook. We're always on the ready. So thank you again so much. Have a wonderful rest of your Saturday. And if it's raining where you are, you can bring the sunshine. It doesn't matter. All right. Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks for having me. Bye.